Indeed, yeah, that's
We're
fine.
faced with a lot of technical issues, but it's over now.
Okay.
So at this moment, we'll just continue with the session, and at this point, I would hand you over to the legal team
Okay.
for them to continue. Legal, all over to you now.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Welcome back, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
I'm reminding you that you're still under oath.
Yes.
Yeah, so we can continue from where we stopped before the break.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so, right before we went on break, we were talking about the orders from the High Court.
Yes.
Yes. Do you have it open now?
Yes, I do.
Okay. So, I don't know whether during the break you were able to go through the order or not.
Yes, I was able to
Okay,
peruse
great.
it.
So, from the order, you can see that there were different departments, or I'll say a couple of departments that were identified within the government and the assets of the former president in different
Can we
categories.
sorry, can we be precise to which of the orders? I think there are two
The
orders,
first
right?
one, MOJ 5A,
Okay.
we will deal with that one first. That was the first one obtained by the AG.
Yes.
Yes. So from that first order, you can see that there are a couple of government departments that were, or institutions that were identified, and different classes of assets were placed in their custody. One being the Registrar General's Department and
Mm-hmm.
the Department of Parks and Wildlife and the Gambia Livestock Marketing Agency.
Yes.
Yes. So before we went on break, you mentioned that in the preparations for this application, in the discussions, you were part of it to some
Yes, indeed.
extent. Yes. So
Mm-hmm.
in the identification of these departments and institutions, were you part of the team or the individuals that met and decided to include them in the application?
Um, I cannot remember the precise details of, I mean, uh, those meetings, but I know certainly, I mean, that it was very much in line with the thinking to make sure that the relevant departments or agencies were assigned the different roles. Yes, I remember that.
Okay. And what was the rationale in having, I mean, for the wildlife, it does make sense to have the Department of Parks and Wildlife
Mm-hmm.
and for livestock, but for the Registrar General,
Mm-hmm.
what was the rationale for having the Registrar General be the one to have custody and control of movable and immovable assets?
Well, I mean, I cannot remember exactly what the rationale would have been, except that, I mean, the Registrar General, as you may know, I mean, is the custodian of landed properties or leased properties, I mean, the land registry at the ministry. And so clearly, I mean, he already has a role, I mean, keeping custody of such records. I mean, so I guess within the ministry, I mean, he was considered the appropriate person, I mean, to be able to, I mean, continue, I mean, that role of, you know, keeping custody of, especially the landed properties that were, I think most of the, I mean, the assets were actually landed properties, basically.
Actually, from the reports and documents received from MOJ and gathered by the Commission of Inquiry, the number of vehicles and tractors and stuff like that, just assets in that category, are as are actually more than the landed properties.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, certainly, I mean, I cannot put a finger on exactly, I mean, why, the Registrar General, like I said, was identified, but I mean, from my recollection, since he was already operating a registry, I think it was felt that he was best placed to be able to, take care of, the uh, assets which have been identified pending for the directives of the court.
All right. And in MOG 5A as well, you would see that the High Court also appointed a receiver
Mm-hmm.
for the companies.
Mm-hmm.
And eventually the receiver duration of work under that appointment lasted for a period of 2 years, from May 2017 to June 2019.
Mm-hmm.
And during the course of this period, in which the appointed receiver, Augustus From, was managing these assets, did you have any interactions with them?
Um, well, I know that when they began, or even before they began, the exercise, there was an initial meeting. Certainly, with the representatives of Augustus Prom, where they were identified to actually be the receiver. And so all the preparatory meetings, yes, I had interactions with them with regards to how to take over, the management of those companies. And of course, they would provide briefings in the course of, the time that they were receivers. And in some of those briefings, I was present at the office of the Attorney General when they would brief about their activities, especially as it related to Abuko, what do you call it? The abattoir. Yeah, the abattoir. I know they did a lot of work at the abattoir. I think that was probably their most challenging task. Because there were already a lot of employees who were actively, working, and so they had to take them on board. The abattoir was, I think, in a very sorry state. I remember them having to, get some contractors to bring it, to standard. Yes, so they provided updates, and in some of those meetings, I was actually present when they were providing updates on the work that they were doing. Yeah.
Were you the focal person for when they had to meet with the age or had documents to submit? Because we've learned from their testimony that they would prepare occasional reports, periodic reports rather, that they would submit to the High Court, but also submit to the Ministry of Justice.
Yes, like I stated in the beginning, the director of civil litigation and his team, were specifically assigned to actually, deal with, the whole asset application, freezing application, as well as subsequent developments. So I think they were directly in touch with them when it came to receiving documents from them and writing correspondence. So the director of civil litigation would have been, the direct contact. But obviously, as Solicitor General, he would brief me, and occasionally, like I said, Augustus from senior and junior, would come to the office and provide briefings. But in terms of their direct contact, I believe it was the director of civil litigation who handled, the communications and updates.
All right, very well. Let's move on from now that the first order has been obtained. 22nd May 2017, the High Court delivered its order and has placed now the control and custody of these assets in the hands of the various departments within the government, and but also the companies for the registrar. There was an implementation meeting, or basically there was a meeting at the Ministry of Justice where the implementation of the order or execution of the order was discussed, correct?
Yes, I believe, yes, there was indeed a meeting to coordinate how the order would be implemented.
Were you part of that meeting?
I recall, yes, a meeting, I mean, where we had to assign tasks. Yes, I think, yes, I should have been, yeah.
Okay. And who do you recall who else was in that meeting?
Well, I mean, of course, the Registrar General was present. Augustus Prom, I mean, was present. Of course, I believe the Director of Civil Litigation would have been present as well. I mean, I cannot recall really, I mean, the names or the precise representatives of the different agencies that would have been present. Definitely, I cannot recall that at all. But I just remember, there was indeed a meeting. I mean, whereby security arrangements were discussed and how to make sure that we moved fast before the assets could be dissipated. But in terms of the precise representations, I definitely will not be able to recall that.
Sorry, so main point of discussion was for the coordination of the implementation of the order.
Yes, indeed.
All right, so what was expected of the Registrar General when during this coordination meeting? What were his instructions? Now that the assets have been placed in his custody by the High Court.
I think basically it was to identify these assets, where they were, I mean, the location of the assets, and the state in which they were, whether they were occupied and who occupied it, basically, and to just make sure that, he had an overview of everything that was placed under his control. When it came to the livestock, I mean, to liaise with the military, whose officers or personnel were stationed in the places where the livestock were. I think this was in Yundum or Farato and Kanilai. I mean, to basically get them to cooperate in terms of ensuring that they know there is a court order which has frozen these assets, to basically respect the terms of the order, not to make sure that, it was not dissipated. So basically, it was just to ensure, that, everybody who needed to know, knew about the order in order to achieve its stated objective.
All right. So does that also include taking an inventory or keeping a record of the things or the assets he would find? For example, if he goes to Canela, he's going to find, of course, vehicles, livestock, other forms, other assets. So does his work also include taking an inventory of the things that he would find?
I believe when it came to the landed properties, the list was already provided. So it was just to make sure that, all the landed assets that have been identified, that have been listed, are properly identified. And I would imagine as well, vehicles or movables that have also not been specifically identified in the order, that there would have been a list of such properties as well, as as at when they're all there identified.
Yeah. So, but my question is, was his instruction for movable assets?
Mm-hmm.
Well, did his instructions include taking an inventory? that he would eventually submit to the ministry either through the Solicitor General or be submitted directly to the AG?
To be fair, I do not recall, I mean, specific instructions given that you should actually, I mean, provide an inventory or a list. I mean, so that is why I said I would expect that, I mean, a list would have been I mean, prepared pursuant to, I mean, the identifications that have been made over the course of the period. But I do not recall certainly specific instruction being given that you should prepare an inventory.
Okay. But to the best of your knowledge, do you know whether inventories were prepared?
Subsequently, yes, I do recall, I mean, that a list of assets, I mean, that were identified was actually prepared. I do not recall the precise details because, like I said, I mean, when it came to day-to-day, I mean, operations of the asset identification exercise as well as the whole, I mean, asset management exercise. I mean, that was actually delegated to the Office of the Director of Civil, I mean, Litigation, of course, together with working with the Registrar General. But I certainly know that some list was prepared, but I do not recall the precise contents.
All right, that's fine. You mentioned earlier that the land had already been identified.
Yeah, as per the order.
As per the order,
Mm.
of course, subsequently, after the commission's work, we did learn that there were more properties that the commission found or discovered. But for the land that was already identified through the register that is in the custody of the Registrar General as part of the High Court order, you did mention that the Registrar General should have or was tasked to visit and identify to see whether there are any occupants in any of these properties.
Mhm.
Was this? Do you know whether this was done?
Yes, I know that. I mean, one of the major tasks that was carried out was to basically go around to, I mean, most of these properties from Banjul to the Combos and basically uh, s- eventually serve eviction notices to persons who, I mean, occupied these properties. And basically, yes, so I know that a lot of work was done in that regard.
All right, very well. And were written records of these visits submitted?
Written records of the visits.
Yes, the outcome of the visits. For example, let's say properties in Banjo, right? Let's say there are about 20 properties in Banjo, and after the visits in Banjo, of course, ordinarily we would expect that a record, a list of these properties would be prepared to state where what happened at each location. So are there occupants in, let's say, Picton? Are there occupants or tenants in Dobson? Something like that. Were these something was something like that ever prepared and submitted?
Yes, I recall a series of memos, actually, I mean, prepared by the former Registrar General. I mean, updating, I mean, the Attorney General and myself, obviously, on, I mean, the developments, that is including visits and, what they found. So, yes, there were a series of memos that I recall, I mean, being written by the former Registrar General on the activities that was being carried out by him over the time.
Okay, and ordinarily memos prepared at that time should still be with the Ministry of Justice, the Records Office.
Yes, I mean, I believe there was a file specifically called a memo file. So there should those should have been they should be in the memo file, I believe.
Is the memo file for a specific department, or does every department have? Does every department have a memo file, or there was just one general memo file?
Yeah, generally when you hear memos at the Ministry of Justice. There are memos from staff to either the Solicitor General or the Attorney General. I mean, mostly these memos were, addressed to, from any department that is. And so, these memos represented correspondence from all departments addressed to either the Solicitor General or the Attorney General.
All right, thank you. You mentioned that in the coordination meeting, the people that you couldn't remember or representatives of different departments that you cannot recall, but can you recall whether they were whether these departments identified in the order? The Department of Parks and Wildlife, the Gambia Livestock Marketing Agency, of course the Registrar General is within the ministry, but these departments that were outside the Ministry of Justice, can you recall whether they were served with a copy of the order or they were informed about the order?
To be honest, I do not really recall. Like I said, the representation, from the different departments. One department that I definitely know was represented was the security, the police. I believe Landi Bojang, the former CMC or operations commander, or some sort of, I recall him very well because, his presence was very conspicuous. But then other departments, to be honest, I would not be able to recall, certainly.
So I'm not actually referring to the meeting exactly, but notification of the order.
Okay.
After the order was delivered by the High Court, now the AG has the order, there's work to be done. The Registrar General is expected to go out and confirm the properties listed in the order. There were also other properties that were vested in his custody and control. But also you had the Department of Parks and Wildlife who had to take custody according to the order of the livestock. So the wildlife that was owned by the former president. And you also have the Gambia Livestock Marketing Agency who should have also taken custody and control of the livestock. So my question now is, were these departments or institutions informed about the order? Did they know that there was an order that is directing them to do something?
I believe the aligned ministries, must have been informed of the order for onward transmission, to the agencies. But like I said, in terms of the correspondence, writing of these letters, I definitely would not be able to, tell. But I do recall that the line ministries actually, were informed, about the order for onward to inform their, the agencies concerned.
And would it now surprise you to learn that there were these departments that were identified in this order, specifically the Department of Parks and Wildlife, who received information about the order or instructions that they should have taken custody and control of the wildlife?
That they did not receive it?
Yes.
Well, yeah, that will be a surprise to me. That, because as far as I recall, the line ministries were informed so that they would inform their, the agencies under them. But then whether, the ministry responsible for wildlife itself was informed, I think the records should speak to that. And if they were not informed, it could be that either their ministry was not written to, or that the ministry did not pass on the information. But what I recall was that the ministry communication was to be done through the ministries.
Okay. And for something this important, such a subject matter, communication would from MOJ to these ministries would be in writing.
Yeah,
Right?
certainly, certainly.
Okay. So therefore, we can say that the records should show that communication was done from MOJ to these land ministries.
Indeed.
Okay. That's interesting because for MOJ's submissions, we've not been able to see that. But that's
Okay.
fine. We will take that up with the AG.